Now, more on this week's terrible economic news, which of course affects all of us. Inflation is up 8.5%, a 40-year high. So think back to Jimmy Carter times, right? Wholesale prices have surged a whopping 11.2%. You've seen that when you're shopping in the grocery stores. And now mortgage rates have risen to 5%, the highest in more than 10 years. But according to Joe, 70% of our economic woes are because of, guess who? Vladimir Putin. Watch this.
Putin's invasion of Ukraine has driven up gas prices and food prices all over the world. Ukraine and Russia are the 1 and 2 largest wheat producers in the world. We're number 3. They're shut down. We saw that in yesterday's inflation data. What people don't know is that 70% of the increase in inflation was a consequence of Putin's price hike because of the impact on oil prices. 70%. We need to address these high prices, and urgently, for working folks out there.
Yeah, where does he get that? I don't know where he's getting it, where that number comes from, but it's just not true. So here now, with more of people who do know what's going on, is Professor of Business and Economics at the King's College in Manhattan, Fox News contributor Brian Brentberg, and Power the Future founder and executive director Daniel Turner, and Independent Women's Voice senior policy analyst Carrie Sheffield. We've been hearing strange nonsense now, well, since January 20th of 2021, and there's things that are just completely made up. But Brian, you know, there's clearly people are hearing about economic news. We feel it every single day. They don't need to be told about it. The polls show they don't believe Joe Biden and what he says about Putin. But can you shed some light on the nature of why these numbers are, in fact, becoming more dramatic, that we're hitting history-making numbers again? What exactly is driving this to such an extreme situation?
Yeah, you know, people don't need to be told what the situation is. They definitely don't need to be told things that aren't true. That's insulting. That's why the polls keep going down for the president, because he's saying things that people know are not true. We got inflation numbers this week that were very, very bad. And obviously it has something to do with Ukraine and Russia. Everybody gets that. But the bigger piece of all of this is the president's failure to deal with our number one cost driver, which is energy, and his continued insistence to try to spend his way out of inflation. When you put those two things together, the only thing it gives you is more and more inflation.
Yes, I think normally, like with President Trump's economic dynamic, it was strong enough to withhold surprises. That's what we all try to do with our own personal bank accounts, is you want to be able to be prepared for that black swan that might show up. And if you're strong, you generally can. So I think that, Carrie, this is, I think, important, especially for kitchen table issues and the choices that we're all making about how we're going to be able to live our lives, how we can plan for the future, for our own savings and for budgets. What do you what's your sense of what's going on with American families here as we have so much chaos?
Tammy, yes, I completely agree with what Brian just said. So I pulled the numbers here. So Biden said that it's 70% Joe Biden's fault. This is an absolute lie. He's shaking hands with imaginary friends while he's making up imaginary numbers. So when you strip out what he specifically said, energy and food, you strip out, the Federal Reserve does this, or the Consumer Price Index does this, strip those out. The core inflation is still 6.5%.
That's outrageous.
On top of, from the 8.5%. That's only a 24% difference, not a 70% difference. So we're talking about specific numbers here.
Right.
And I also want to tell you, Tammy, that we are now in the 10th month of interest or inflation that's above 5%. That is way before the invasion that happened in the Ukraine. So this is a lie, and the people know this. The question is, will big tech suppress this and say this is a lie, this is misinformation from the President of the United States? I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah, it's, again, no matter what big tech tells us or social media tells us, Daniel, we see it every single day when we pick up something in the market or off the shelves, which frankly still do not have what we want. This is the United States of America. It's almost as though they're moving us deliberately into like a Venezuela kind of thing to get us used to having to compromise or settle, especially when it comes to energy and gasoline and what we can expect from power. What's your take on where we're headed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is very deliberate. And even before this invasion happened, the Biden administration had to make fossil fuels unattractive. They had to make them expensive because there is no political will for this green revolution. The American people don't want it. The free markets don't want it. And so that's why they have to use the power of government. And they've purposely made fossil fuels expensive. And we're feeling the consequence of that right now. Everything that is grown, manufactured, transported, it all requires energy. All our heating and our electric and our cars all require energy. And by making energy expensive, he has made life itself expensive.
Right.
And until he puts in place policies that increases the amount of oil and gas we produce in America, this is going to continue. And sadly, it's going to continue for 3 more years because he will not reverse course, because he will not give up this fantasy of this green revolution.
Yeah, Brian, I completely agree with that assessment, because these are deliberate decisions. They see that the harm they've done. They're still refusing to make a difference. And we know that this is policy. These are choices, maybe not by Joe Biden directly. When it comes to policy, obviously, we need to start up, generating energy here at home. What else can we do when we think about the supply chain, as an example, and China, which has locked down Shanghai, I guess the biggest port that there is, which affects the supply chain? Is some of this stuff just going to go on forever? Is there anything we can do, anything the president can do?
Look, you got to make America the #1 place in the world to invest. In the coming years, all of the alignments in the global economy are going to change because we're realizing that we cannot have such strong ties with countries that don't share our strategic interests. Russia, China, others. America has to become the investment spot. That means you quit talking about taxing oil and gas companies into submission. That means you quit talking about taxing wealth and you start talking about making this a great place to invest money, keep money, put your capital to work. The Biden administration message is the opposite of that, which is why people don't have faith in him right now on the economy.
Carrie, I'm going to give you the last word when it comes to what should be done right now, besides us, of course, taking things over in November. What do you think the White House could do right now to make things better?
Well, here's one. Have the Federal Reserve stay in its lane. It's supposed to be doing inflation and unemployment. Instead, Biden is putting up woke nominees. Everyone in the sound of my voice, call your senator, tell them to oppose Dr. Lisa Cook. She's been nominated to the Fed. She is a racist. She believes in critical race theory. She believes in reparations. What does that have to do with inflation? Nothing. She's totally unqualified. And her colleague, Sarah Bloom Raskin, Senator Joe Manchin, put a hold on that nomination to the Federal Reserve. We need real professionals who understand inflation, who are serious individuals. And we miss you at Independent Women's Voice. We're starting Independent Women's Network. We are mobilizing conservative women across the country right now. People are enthusiastic and excited. They see that we have the momentum with us. So join the Independent Women's Network. That's the other thing.
Well, I think that we all know that we certainly can't just sit by and deal with this and just hope it goes away. And I think we all know kind of our lanes to go into to make a difference. Brian, Daniel, Carrie, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now.